No, he doesn't have page 12.
He said that.
Are you just turning it off because it doesn't work?
No.
Did Bryson walk in?
I'm not gonna that. He's 5'8". I know it is.
She's not home. I'm just gonna go sit her.
So, if you are under the impression that, holy cow, we just missed 4 days of class, we
What does
have
the U of M do?
tons to do.
What does the U of M do
You're
about that?
kind of right. But we're actually in better shape than normal because it is a smaller unit of study. It's only 5 chapters. And so we're okay, actually, we're okay.
It's not like all the
Okay.
other.
They called me, like you and people.
Yeah, they called me too, yeah. Cancel classes, so we're okay. You should be, in your world, the Kias, and if you read, I made the one that's due today and due next week. So both Kias will be due next week, and that's of minor concern. What we really should be working on is the 2-paragraph mini paper proving Lefebvre's point of view that it wasn't about empire for the U.S. It was all about markets and raw materials. That's why the U.S. entered the Spanish-American War. And then after today, when we talk about Hofstadter, you will now be charged with writing the second mini paper, which both will be due Wednesday. And remember, it's not really a graded thing.
It's a check-up.
The only thing that's graded is the final paper, which is due like March 7th or something like that. But it is a good idea to sort of keep up with us. And so Wednesday, I will look and see, are you done? And a good faith attempt will get you a few points. But I'm not going to actually read the thing and look at your arguments. I'm not going to do that. Well, that's something else. But so remember, find a quote that proves the claim being made. That's what that one piece of paper was for. And then now you need to find evidence that it would appear to be true. You are not finding evidence rejecting it. That's later. Just for now, just prove it.
Is the story?
And then you can later on question the conclusion of the historian.
Historian 1 is Lefebvre.
Historian 1 is Lefebvre, yeah. Although, I guess it doesn't really matter. I don't know. Okay. Any questions on that? Lunch smells delicious. All right, so let's keep going here. Again, what we're really doing in this unit is looking at what I would argue is a second Civil War. No, that's not right. That the previous unit was all about the attempt by the federal government to impose its will upon state governments. And now the federal government is, in this unit, attempting to impose its will on another entity, big businesses, through regulations and laws and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so this is quite a title. Big business builds on other big business, conservative view. So allow me to make an economic argument. This unit is easily the most economic-based unit of all 6. But it all starts with railroads. Railroads are a big deal. They are the driving industry of the late 1800s, early 1900s. They're like cars today. I'm sure that's quite equivalent, but they're the driving mechanism. You want to know how the country's doing? How are railroads doing today? You want to know how the country's doing? Look at cars, look at houses, right? That's a good indicator of how the country's doing overall. You want railroads? That develops another entire industry, the steel industry, right? It's not an accident that the same time that railroads are being built across the country is when U.S. Steel becomes a juggernaut. That's not an accident. It is causal, not correlational. Ooh, man, I just used 2 big words. Anyone want to explain? I'm telling you that this is a causal relationship, not a correlational relationship.
cause and effects versus there's just two things that happen to it.
Pretty good, right? I mean, according to causal relationship, how many of you ate breakfast this morning?
I know.
Anybody eat breakfast this morning? And I got dressed.
That's not cause.
You ate breakfast and I put on clothing. You understand? Because you ate breakfast, I put on clothing. No, those are correlational. They happen to have happened. They had nothing to do with each other.
Is that why you don't eat breakfast on Monday? You get something.
Right. This is causal. Railroads need steel. So the development of the railroad industry leads to the development of the steel industry, which leads to the development, because steel was produced, of the development of another method of transportation being mass produced, and that is the automobile industry. It leads to it. Railroads lead to cars. Oh, Henry Ford, big time. Well, you want cars? You need fuel. It is not an accident that at the same time, relatively same time that railroads were being developed, is the same time that the Standard Oil Company was developed. The world's largest oil company, owned and operated by John D. Rockefeller. And at one point, Standard Oil controlled about 90% of the world's oil, and he was the owner. I mean, think about how rich that makes this guy. This guy was really rich. Okay? Well, now that you can transport goods not on rail lines, one of the advantages of cars is that they're much more able to reach everywhere, right? Everywhere. The disadvantage of railroads is they can only go along the railroad track. Cars can go anywhere, pretty much. Well, you are developing the ability to transport all sorts of goods. These things just take off. And anyone want to take a shot here? Take a shot. Take a shot. Where was sugar and tobacco highly dominant? Produced, yes.
So.
You're kind of right.
Cuba. India.
Cuba. Spanish-American War, right? You're looking at Spanish-American War. The world's largest meat packaging company, Armour and Swift, which, by the way, still exists. I think they broke up. I think there's a company called Armour and another company called Swift. Any of you know that fun little story about Fleet Farm? Farm and Fleet Farm, right? They were brothers and they hate each other. So one started a company called Mills Fleet Farm, and the other one started a company called Mills Farm and Fleet.
What?
Different.
That's so
Are they
different.
still separate?
No, they're different. Notice though that the development of these industries leads to some abusive behaviors. And I'm not even sure it's fair to say abusive behaviors on the part of companies where government people would say, well, now wait a minute now, we need to take a look at this. We need to take a look at their pay. How are these people being paid? Their hours they're working, their working conditions. Do we have to give them bathroom breaks? You know, think of all the laws that exist today. What is minimum wage today? Whatever it is. How many hours a day can a company require you to work?
8.
Is that true? Are you sure about that?
I think it's 18.
18 hours a day. Dang.
I work 8, like 12
Any of you have any relatives that drive? That's their job, trucking? They can only drive 8 hours a day.
No, for them it's like 18. They're
Okay,
required
so
to take-
what you're doing is saying, well, maybe it depends. Doctors sometimes are on call 8 hours a day. That sounds like cake, right? Aren't they on call
24/7.
more than that? All right, so sanitation, does a company have to provide a clean and safe working environment? Of course, today the answer is yes. If you look at any of these things, there are answers today because of government involvement. Well, of course, when do you think that government involvement started? Right here is when it started, because of the need to address it. The second big idea, so this is kind of a big idea number one, is how is government going to get involved? This is another thing going on, and it's a prevalent line of thinking at the time. It's something called social Darwinism.
Eugenics.
Yes, you're exactly right. Eugenics, right? In large part dismissed today as a way of thinking. But it's the argument that certain people have innate characteristics that make them superior. White people were just better than others. Sorry, other races, you're just inferior. Like the polar bear has a superior physical characteristic that enables him to survive in the cold climates, right? Polar bears are white. So is the snow. So predators cannot see the polar bear, but they can see other animals, so they hunt those other animals, the polar bear survives. That's nothing, the polar bear didn't decide one day, I'll be white and survive. It's just nature. Nature just gave that polar bear that physical superior characteristic, and so it is with people. White people are just smarter. Sorry, other races, you're just dumber. It's nothing personal, you're just dumber. But it's also nations. Nations are superior. White nations. If white people are superior to black people, that means nations of white people are superior to nations of black people. Sorry, other nations, you're just inferior. And think about evolution. What happens to the inferior species? They die. They die.
Heck yeah.
What happens to inferior people?
And then,
They die. What happens to inferior nations? They die.
and then one German guy with a funny mustache took it too far, and
Yeah.
everybody stopped thinking of that.
Yeah, I would say you're exactly right. That Hitler, I think what most people think is that Hitler tricked the German people, and they were all afterwards like, what? No. Hitler was the result of the German way. Story for another day.
Maybe the Jews aren't so bad.
This last bit of note-taking is the Supreme Court stepping in and giving these giant new entities. These are new entities. These huge corporations are new entities, and actually awarding them rights. According to the Supreme Court, number one, states could not regulate these businesses. These businesses were beyond states. Only the feds. Only the feds. States could not regulate big businesses. I have them here as trusts. Huge businesses and railroads and steel and car and all these other things, they go beyond states. So states, sorry, you don't get to make the rules. Only the feds can. So of course the federal government is going to have to do so. And then here's something else that's kind of interesting, and I'll rephrase it a different way. You're going to write down 14th Amendment applied to corporations. 14th Amendment applied to corporations. What's the 14th Amendment? Citizenship. According to, this is weird, according to the Supreme Court, these things are people. They are people. The businesses have rights. Businesses can now express free speech. Businesses can bear arms. Businesses are legal entities. So now businesses can endorse people who run for president. Businesses can do that. That's an expression of free speech. If businesses are citizens and citizens have rights, then businesses have rights. Which is an interesting line of logic. Okay, any questions here? Let's keep going. Of course, all of these are available to you. So, as I said, only the federal government would be able to regulate these big businesses. Now let's take a look at early attempts to do so. We're looking at the first attempt by the federal government to regulate these giant businesses. It was called the Sherman Antitrust Act. The Sherman Antitrust Act. You see the year, 1890. And you'll notice the wording. I mean, if you want to write that down, okay. I kind of think it's a waste of time. It outlawed any contract, combination, or conspiracy and restraint of trade or commerce among several states or with foreign nations. If you were a naughty big business. If you didn't pay your workers fairly, if you made them work incredibly long hours, if your working conditions were dangerous, you were a naughty business, and the federal government could regulate you. On the side are the conclusions made by the people that enforce this law. Right? Congress passes it. It is up to the president to enforce it. So he goes to his department and says, all right, enforce this law. Department of Justice, Justice Department, enforce it. And they did. And they concluded all monopolies are bad. All monopolies are bad. If you're a monopoly, you are by definition bad. And the other thing that made so some people are like, well, wait a minute, what if you're a perfectly good monopoly? And then the other thing that's sort of weird is that the Sherman Antitrust Act was used to break up another monopoly, unions. Unions. Which is weird because, let me go back. These are big businesses, these are monopolies. One way of fighting these businesses is to create a union that'll say, hey, pay us better, give us shorter working conditions and safer conditions and all this. Unions are a way of fighting this. And another way of fighting this is the Sherman Antitrust Act, but the Sherman Antitrust Act took on unions. Which you're not supposed to be fighting each other, you're supposed to have a common foe. The big businesses. And what the government did was broke up unions. So it was a good try. It needed to be replaced. It needed to be replaced with something better. Problem, it broke up all unions. Problem, it took on unions. It broke up all monopolies. Problem number 2, it took on unions. Nice try. We're gonna have to do better. We're gonna have to do better. Okay. Now notice I had the big word liberal there, and then on the previous slide I had conservative.
Whoa.
The conservative view is less government. This will fix itself. If you want more pay, fine. I might be willing to pay you, but I might not. I'll hire this person who will work for less, and then you'll go and find another job, and because I pay you less, I can charge the customer less, and so the prices go down, and competition is healthy, and we don't need government. That this will fix itself, says the conservative, and the liberal says no, it won't. It will not fix itself. You need to tell McDonald's to make their coffee not too hot. You need to tell car companies to put seatbelts in. If you don't, they won't. Whereas the conservatives say, yes, they will. They'll figure it out. This company will make a car without seatbelts. This car company will make one with seatbelts. You'll buy this car. I'll buy this car. We'll crash. You'll die. I'll live. And then future people will say, she died. She was in a car without seatbelts. He lived. He was in a car with seatbelts. Let's buy the car with seatbelts. Problem solved. This company will figure out, gee, no one's buying our cars. Let's build cars with seatbelts. No government. Liberals said, no, they won't. They will not figure that out on your own. And by the way, how many people have to die before they figure that out? Let's just fix it now.
6 million.
Last slide. The impact of the new industrial revolution on America. I'm showing you 4 large impacts. Positive, negative, important. 1, it increases the standard of living. Do you enjoy having toilets that flush? Do you enjoy over the last couple days not having to go to the outhouse to take a big old dump? Because that is because of industrialization. Do you enjoy cars with heat and this building and technology and transportation systems that exist? Do you enjoy the ability of buying sugar and meat and not having to slaughter the lamb? Let's have steak tonight. All right, who's killing old Bessie? I will, Dad. All right, come here, Bessie. Boom, you shoot him in the head, you slaughter the thing. Steve, you don't have to. Just go to Cub. Just buy steak. They've already done that. Somebody else, all right? It's because of industrialization of America.
I think we could have done all.
Number 2. We become a nation of manufacturing. You were looking at the time period, right around the year 1900 is when more people were associated with the manufactured products rather than agriculture. We are right now in the midst of another transformation where the United States is moving from a manufacturing nation to an information-based industry. Right? Think of the huge companies. One of them is Google. Now, Google does actually make some things, but not many things. They make some phones, right? Facebook. Show me a Facebook product. Give me, put in my hand a thing that Facebook makes. Do they make anything?
Yeah, in the library.
Okay, so they do make things.
They own the company.
But really what they're based on is information.
Except they didn't make that, they own the company that made it.
Okay, yeah, that's very complicated. My point is that the United States has been going through this transformation from where we make things, like physical things, to the exchange of information. And that is the new revolution. This was the previous revolution. Okay. Impact number 3, expanding ability of women to get out of the home. We need to hire these people. So come on, women, work. It is oftentimes during changes in an economy where you will see an expansion of rights. Expansion of rights. It is not a coincidence that this happens at the same time, basically, as women's right to vote. That is not a coincidence. It is causal, not correlation. And then finally, this is sort of a repeat, these two. We become wage-based. Wage-based. You're paid by the hour rather than you're paid because of a product you make. Think of a farmer. Farmers aren't paid by the hour. Farmers are paid by, supplying corn or soybeans or cows or something. We now become a nation of wage earners. Think about 100 years previous to this. More like 200 years previous to this. The only people that got to vote were property owners. That's it. If you worked, you don't vote. Your value was attached to the land. Now, your value is attached to what you do. What you do, not what you own. And I would say to a large extent that continues today. That we still see, you look at me and you say, teacher, really? You look at your parents, right? You don't say, well, we live in a really small house and my dad, you look at what they do as a way of identifying. Think of the Middle Ages. Who gave a crap what you did? Did you have the right title? Did you have claim to land? That's what that was. Okay. All right, good. Any questions here? That's it.
No.
Done. Now, normally I'd give you a little break, but we don't have time. Let's take a look at this piece of paper, the Hofstadter-Lefebvre thingy. You all have it. Do you need another copy? I have mine. Who needs another copy? I'm sure I have that somewhere. One of the problems with missing the last 4 days is that we would have actually looked at the packet, and then I would have had you kind of find good quotes and all that. We're going to skip that and go straight to this. You're welcome. We are going to look at only 2 documents. Document 1 by Hofstadter, and then document 3 by Hofstadter. Okay? So let's just do this. We're going to do a mini little lesson here. This half, will you please look at document 1? This half, will you please look at document 3? Document 1 is about Hofstadter's view, did the U.S. go to war out of a desire to become a great empire? That's this one. Does he agree with that?
Yeah.
This group, taking on the argument that the U.S. got involved in the Spanish-American War out of a desire for markets and raw materials. In other words, the economic argument. Is that true, according to document 3? Okay, give you a minute. Go. How many more time? I didn't mean to. Some of us just. All right. So let's see what he has to say. So that half, you're obviously going to be listening to this group because you were not assigned document number 1. Here's Hofstadter. I'm just reading it. In general, this group of imperialists was inspired by the navalist theories of Mahan, Alfred Thayer Mahan. We will read about. How many of you have ever heard of this guy? American foreign policy today is based on this guy, Alfred Thayer Mahan, and American history students do not know who this guy is, so I'm going to fix that. Keep going. The imperialists, they saw that a new phase of imperialism had opened in the Western world at large, and they were fearful that if the United States did not adopt a policy of expansion and preparation for military and naval struggle, it would be left behind in what they referred to as the struggle for life or the march of the nations. So, question for that group. Why did the U.S. go to war against in the Spanish-American War?
To enlarge the nation and become bigger.
More bigger. Nice.
Imperialism.
Imperialism, yeah. To become a great nation, right? To match, this kind of fits in nicely, to match that. To fulfill the argument of social Darwinism, to become a great nation. If you don't, you die, according to social Darwinism. So we gotta go. Right? We need to become a great nation. It's one of the fun things about, and we're just starting to enter this, and what we're going to try and do is understand, why did Germany do what they did? Why did Japan do what they did? That's why. Hitler was an excellent student of American history. And he's like, oh, that's what you do. Oh, only substitute the word Indians with the word Jews, substitute eastward expansion for westward expansion, and you've got German history. Now they also, did a little bit more.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. All right. Hey. Any questions there? So Hofstadter's like, it was for empire. It was to become a great nation. Now prove it. Prove that's what the U.S. was trying to do. And by the way, an excellent strategy. You getting this? An excellent strategy. Well, that would mean that the areas that we conquered after the Spanish-American War would have become states. And those people would have become American citizens. Did that happen? It didn't. There's the difference. If it's westward expansion, that's not empire, because those new entities, those Western states, would have total equality to the original 13. Look at what Britain did with the 13 colonies. No representation, heavy taxes, abusive behavior toward the colonists. You serve us. That's what we were doing with the Philippines, according to Hofstadter. According to Hofstadter. Okay, any questions there? So it's all about empire. Well, what does it say about economic? Did the United States go to war for economic reasons, according to Hofstadter?
They got the recent ones. They got the support of the people for economic reasons.
Okay, but if you had to say the word yes or no.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you understand? Hofstadter is a yes. Lefebvre is a no yes. They agreed economically, sort of. Now, you did say something important, very good, and I will address that in a second. But they agreed economically. They disagreed politically. Okay?
So do you just address one economic area?
No, you'll still have to quote from both. But the difference, and I'm not too concerned whether you fully grasp this, I don't really care. The difference was, Ben, you want to address it? What was the difference between their economic points of view?
Well, what Lefebvre was saying is that, like, throughout American history, we always want raw materials and land, and Hofstadter saying that because, like, the Great Depression, we went to get more economic basis.
Very, very good. Really very impressive. I'm quite impressed with that. Lefebvre argues Lefebvre is an economic historian. He says, you want to understand American history? Study the economics of it. Always. It dictates all American behavior. Which document is it? Document 6. Is it document 6? Oh, document 5. The United States foreign policy is, after all, concerned primarily with the nation's domestic system and only secondarily with the systems of other nations. American diplomatic history, like you find in study how the United States relations with other nations ensure the survival of increased prosperity in the American system. We always act out of concern for our economy. Always. Hofstadter says, well, it's because of this 1893 depression. That's when the U.S. said, geez Louise, we created this giant economic system and no one's buying it. We got to sell it somewhere. How about the Philippines? How about China? Nice. So we better give ourselves the ability to get to China. Hawaii, Guam, Philippines, China. Okay, that's a minor concern. I am totally comfortable with you writing a 2-paragraph paper on Hofstadter that says we did it for empirical reasons, empire, and we did it for economics. Lefebvre, we did not do it for empire, we did it for economics.
Can we write 2 paragraphs about Hofstadter saying?
What?
Like we didn't do it for economics? And then you
That-
another,
No one says that.
Hofstadter says we didn't do it for economics.
No, we didn't.
He says we did.
Hofstadter's a yes, yes. Lefebvre is a no, yes. They agree economically, they disagree politically. I think what you meant to ask was, can we then write a 3-paragraph paper? 1 3-paragraph paper. I'm telling you, you could do that. You could write a 3-paragraph paper, right? That 1 paragraph is going to have 2 quotes in it. A Lefebvre quote and a Hofstadter quote. 1 historical example.
One where they agree on the economic.
Because they agree on the economic. For the most part, yes.
You'll still have to.
You understand?
Yeah, Ben asked that if
So
They both argued that the U.S. went to war against Spain for economic reasons. So that could be 1 paragraph. 2 quotes, a Lefebvre quote and a Hofstadter quote, 1 historical example to prove that it is true. And then you need to write 2 separate paragraphs on the disagreement over political. Hofstadter's view is, yep. Lefebvre's view is
Political, when does it?
political empire, right? The creation of a dominant American empire. Political.
So Lefebvre, no political, and then Hofstadter, yes.
You got it. Questions?
For our final one, you mean?
No, for the one due Wednesday.
But on the final one, we could do like intro 3.
The final is laid out for you. How do you want it? Don't even worry about the final. Okay, we're not even close to being there yet. Just relax. All right.
No,
He's talking about the final paper, the final paper, not the final.
Final paper. Don't even worry about that. I haven't even given you the second set of documents which are necessary to write the final yet. So don't even worry about that. Just for next Wednesday, either write a 3 or a 4 paragraph.
Hold on.
Why do we need
Why
more?
does it feel like?
Don't burden yourself. Just do you want to write a 2-paragraph paper on Hofstadter and a separate 2-paragraph paper on Lefebvre? Fine. Do you want to combine them? Fine. Let's do Wednesday.
I'm kind of stupid. If we're writing like the juiciest part of the paper, and you really have to all specific part of it. Never mind.
Now,
Oh, wow.
forget everything you just were talking about. Forget it. Blue book essay.
Oh,
How you
my
spell
God.
spice?
I don't know.
I just didn't realize.
Yeah, I know. I eliminated some letters.
Oh my God.
I am about to help you a lot.
How about spec?
Now we're singing this way. You had two options as far as your Blue Book essay. The first option was this question: how did we become the economic giant that we are? And the second was, why did those nativists not want immigration in the late 19th, early 20th centuries? You are picking either this question or this question, okay? And there are 7 documents that you have access to as far as which question you're answering. For tomorrow, Monday, for Monday, I want you to create one of these. Just create an 8 square, if you're doing this one, 8 squares, and if you're doing this one, 10 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 squares. And then, I've already assigned a document to you, correct? I already assigned a document to you, okay? Where does your document belong? Where does it belong? Okay? Is your document arguing that the reason we became a giant industrial economic giant is because of new technology or because of the infrastructure? If you don't know what infrastructure is, it is the building blocks that you need to develop a society. Like, for example, Somerset has infrastructure called roads and bridges, and because of the infrastructure, you can build businesses. The infrastructure is already there. Okay, what did the U.S. have as far as infrastructure? How about pro-government policies, friendly government policies? How about natural resources? How about low wages? And how about the business model? Monopolies. Okay, which one of these, or which two of these, whatever, does your document fill in? All you have to do is write the number of the document. Let's say document 7 is technology. 7. There, you're done. Same thing down here. What I've done is I've pared it down. All 7 documents of the nativist essay. I'm sorry, the words overlap. That really is annoying. I'm going to fix that right now.
Yay.
Look at that. It doesn't do it here. Problem solved. Yay. Okay, so all 7 documents are one of 4 arguments being made. Social, as in gender and race. You want to put that in little parentheses? If it's arguing that one of the reasons why real Americans did not welcome other people is because they were the wrong race, then that's a social argument. Right. Cultural is slightly different, but if you wanted to create, this is what I would do. I would create a category called social culture. They're really, really close, but it has more to do with religion, language. This is what race you are. This is what religion you are. But a lot of times, whatever race you were dictated what religion you were and what language you spoke. So they're very, very close to each other. Okay? What economic arguments? Were they taking our jobs? They took our jobs! They took our jobs! All right. And then political. What political arguments? In other words, these immigrants. How did they vote? Did they vote en masse for the same candidate? Well, maybe these nativists didn't like who they voted for. So let's not let them vote. Okay? Where does your document belong? Is your responsibility for Monday. Is it also fair for me to ask by Monday, pick which question you want to do? Pick the question you want to do. I don't care which one. Doesn't matter. Okay? After you pick the question, pick one more document from that question and figure out where it belongs. Okay? So you'll have one document from the other question, one you don't want to do, and 2 documents for the one you do want to do. For Monday. Okay? No, you're not. You're not drowning as badly as it could have been. Yes, dear.
You're only drowning a little bit.
You need these documents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have that.
No way.
That's
I know you got.
I have it.
Father, I know you got.
Oh, yeah, I can.
Definitely right. Definitely, that's right. I don't care. It's fine.
Breathing too hard. I'm breathing my ears too hard.
I don't understand the argument for Hofstadter's economic.
Oh, you suck. Just kidding. Everybody bow down. 30 plus, he is our Lord.
Right, man.
I said, what? Zero.
That's some BS. No, I want zeros on my video.
Why would you need to read that if it's
Can you explain the Hofstadter economic?
Dirk and Twitter got added to the All-Star game.
Dwayne Wade.
Yeah.
What?
Hofstadter economic.
Did Hofstadter think we went to war for economic reasons? Don't worry about it. I told you we went to war for economic reasons. So find a quote proving that that's what they thought, and find a piece of evidence proving that. Just very quickly swing around to an expansionist position. This video talk about the building as a possible gateway to the markets of Eastern Asia. Why do we want the building? So that we can have access to China. Prove it. Prove that that's true.
There's no way.
Yes.
I'd rather keep my guts out.
Everybody was laughing.
I would not